It's a pleasure to be here. This is a terrific organization, and I've had the pleasure, not just since I became a member of Congress, but for many years prior to that, to interact with the Baltimore Jewish Council and, of course, with the associated, the larger framework. And on so many fronts, the BJC is committed to our community, but yet is advocating on issues that affect the region, affect the nation, and, of course, affect the world. And so I want to thank you for being engaged as you are in the organization and being part of the kind of next generation of people that are taking an interest, which is a challenge in any community. I will just tell you, last night I was with members of the Greek community talking about how we can reach out to our younger generation and get them more involved. And I will report that more than one person alluded to how well that is done in the Jewish community. So the Jewish community's reputation for engaging at all levels is one that reaches far and wide. So I congratulate you. We are, as you can imagine, right now, it's sort of all healthcare all the time, as it should be, because we've got to get this done. I believe we're going to get it done. I'm very confident that we will not come home at the end of this year empty-handed when it comes to healthcare. There's too much riding on it. The public has made it very clear they want to see this happen, regardless of sort of the battles and the full moon activity of August that you all watched. The surveys are consistent, and the surveys show that only 20% of the American people says they do not want Congress to act when it comes to health care reform. There's obviously debate over some of the issues to be included, some of the provisions to be included, but on balance, the support for reform is there. And I think everybody understands that, Democrat and Republican, and the President certainly. So we're going to continue to push forward on that initiative. It's all going to happen in the next few weeks. And I think, just so you know, that the House will take to the floor, the leadership will bring to the floor of the House a bill that includes a pretty strong public option for those of you who have been watching that debate, and we can talk about it in a minute. And then we'll go into conference and see what comes out of conference in terms of the final form of this bill. My philosophy of government, just so you understand, is that policymakers need to listen carefully enough to know when the public is pushing for a new framework, a new policy framework, and then advance that, push it forward. Nowhere is this clearer than with respect to our energy policy, which has been stuck in the past for decades. And there's all this pent-up sort of entrepreneurial spirit and energy and enthusiasm ready to be unleashed, but it cannot be unleashed in the current framework. And you have venture capitalists, for example, that are sitting on their hands because they don't know what the rules of the road are going to be yet, and they don't want to invest in new clean technologies. They don't know until they know what the framework is, they don't know what the price point on oil and gas is going to be, so how are they going to go invest in this alternative source of energy over here? They're not going to do it. They're going to sit there. I've been amazed in this economic downturn when I go around and I talk to people who have been hit, full force in the chest, had the wind knocked out of them by the economy, how determined they are to get back on their feet, how much they believe that they have the know-it-all, the wherewithal to really seize opportunities if those opportunities are provided to them. The challenge in this economy is that the recovery is going to be jobless in many respects. Industries are disappearing. It's not like you're going to hire back the same people because suddenly business is better. So that's where we got to be thinking of new job creation. Again, in the energy space, a lot of opportunities there. So the challenges are great, but we're up to it. There's no question that we're up to it. And the folks in Washington just have to be smart enough to get these structures in place so the American people can kind of jump in there and take over. And I think they're ready to do that. No situation is more complex, for example, than the crisis in the Mideast and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and finding appropriate ways to advance a peaceful resolution of that. No situation is more complex than what's going on with Iran. And I know we'll probably talk about that more. So we've got to proceed cautiously, but we've got to proceed. I think in our dealings, our relationship with Israel, where we don't need to engage in public discussion of some of the important issues that we're grappling with, we shouldn't. And maybe the administration could have been a little more careful about that early on. But I think we're getting the right sort of balance in that approach. So in any event, internationally things are very complex. Domestically, a lot of structural challenges that we face that we've got to address. Can we do it? Absolutely we can do it. So all I can pledge to my constituents, those of you in this room who are my constituents and others who could become them after we redistrict, is that I will adhere to those three principles. And right now my district goes from Reisterstown in the north to Annapolis in the south, at 25% of Baltimore City, 25% of Baltimore County, 30% of Howard County, and 50% of Anne Arundel County. And I can drive in a straight line for 20 minutes and go in and out of my district like a dozen times, the way it's shaped. But since it's my district, I just love it. And they'll change the lines on me and I'll have to relearn them. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Why don't we just throw it open to any questions, comments, thoughts you have.